Hello and welcome back once again to Yapping About Sports. I come back from the Detroit Tigers game on Monday from Comerica Park after yet another loss. Six straight losses now for the Detroit Tigers. They fall to 1-9 in their last 10 games, and it's pretty simple. It's just not a good product. It's not winning baseball by any stretch of the means, but to do the 180 that for me personally that I did with this team just 10 days ago or so. You enter the Chicago White Sox series 60 and 61 with a chance to take first place in the division, and now you've been swept 2 weekends in a row, have lost 9 out of 10 games, fall 9 games below 500, now 4 games out of the wild card. It only got worse, and anybody that had any sliver of hope, I think really, the last and true final straw. There's been multiple, and in terms of expectation, there's been a lot of games that have already killed that in terms of optimism and trying to still compete for the playoffs this season. But the Kenley Jansen blown save in Pittsburgh, I think, really what did you in, because it shone through why you had lost so many games this year, and then you go to the next series and tonight. And 3 out of 4 games, this Tigers lineup has now not been able to score more than 2 runs. You score 2 runs, 1 run, 7 runs in the Kansas City series, and you score 1 run tonight off of Rasmussen. And Tampa Bay, not a team on paper outside of Caminaro, Baker, McClanahan, and Rasmussen that you really think has a lot. You have a veteran like Cedric Mullins, but not really hitting for much. You look at the Tampa Bay Rays lineup outside of Junior, and there's really not a lot on paper. You have Aranda and some other pieces there, but not a lot that flashes out at you like the Dodgers lineup, like a Cubs lineup, like a Braves lineup. There's not a lot of just names that, pop off of that screen at you. And that's where I give the Tampa Bay Rays props and credits, and also the Milwaukee Brewers on the National League side of things, because they are two organizations that know how to get the most out of their players that they currently have rostered. And seeing the Tampa Bay Rays be the best team in the American League, brand-wise, I'm not sure if it's really good for the American League. I think I enjoy Tampa Bay being a competitive team, but for Boston, for New York, for teams in not so much the Central, but for Houston, for Seattle, for Texas, teams that have been in the championship series these past 3 seasons, in terms of the Astros, in terms of the Mariners, and in terms of the Rangers over 2023, 24, 25. So, there's been competitive teams in the American League, and I think that tonight sort of marks it that it's a failed season for the Tigers. You're going to need a miracle at this point in time, way beyond it feels like the type, because of how late you are now in the season. There's just not enough time. 1 month and 5 games of baseball simply is just not enough. It will simply not be enough. You are entering almost a month total left in the season. 31 games left. You have 31 games remaining in this MLB season. And for you to even be at 500, just think about this in perspective. Just for you to be at 500, you have to go minimally 22-13. So, or I did that math wrong. But regardless, you have to go 9 games above 500 just to get to 81-81. So, I just going 20-11 just doesn't seem reasonable. I'm going to be honest. And I won't be surprised if this losing streak goes all the way through the homestand. I really would not be surprised. Best team in the American League in Tampa Bay. First place team and 2-time defending World Series champion with Tarek Skubal on the docket for one of those games this weekend, Friday or Saturday. And yeah, right now I said it in tonight's post game. If you don't follow my social pages on at Yappin' About Sports on Instagram, on TikTok, and at Yappin' AB Sports on X, but tonight's post game I said, it wasn't expected. This wasn't an unexpected result, and I think that you're going to have the fans that say there's no reason to really complain about this team not making the postseason after trading Skubal and after trading Mize, because it was a sign of them not truly going for it. They didn't add anything to try to help their bullpen, knowing that was it's sort of, again, because I think it was just with how bad the American League is, and that you only had 4 teams entering tonight's play that had winning records, and 3 of those teams residing in the American League East, with the Tampa Bay Rays, the Boston Red Sox, and the New York Yankees. There's really nothing left in the American League. There really isn't. I don't see the Chicago White Sox as a very strong first place team. I don't see the Central very strong for whatever team and or teams find their way into the postseason. And the American League West is more than likely going to have a 500 or below winner as things are currently riding right now. So, I will say one thing is Valdez had a shaky and rocky start, but only giving up four runs over 8 hits and really settling down after giving up 2 first-inning runs. He did well enough after 6 innings of work to keep you within striking distance. And if you're not going to pitch winning baseball, I guess you got the best that you really could have asked tonight from Valdez in terms of what he's been giving you. But it continues to go back to that theme of $38 million. You just can't escape that fact, unfortunately. You can't run away from the fact that you have that much money tied up in an arm that has been, for the most part, unsuccessful when you have needed it to be. And whether it goes back to June and having a 10-game homestand to try to correct yourself, or I really think in terms of losing and bad stretches, this season will be majorly defined by the 2-11 or 2-10 stretch that they're currently in, and the 6-22 mark that they had in May. And the beginning and end, you can do as much and mess around in the middle, but you have to get off to a good start, and you have to finish just on the throttle, somehow, way, shape, or form. Just how your season sort of has to operate. And 2024, I get you sort of were able to, by definition, sneak your way in and rely on a couple teams falling off the table. I think the Twins fell off the table in 2024 in order for the Tigers to sneak in that final playoff spot. And then you win a playoff series. And then you bring up some expectation in 25, and you're like, okay, they didn't get any further, but they now have a better roster. And then you look at the offseason signings. You think you might have a bullpen that's able to do something and hold on, and you ultimately just don't have a winning product. And whether it went from Valdez not pitching consistently, whether it was Skubal going on the injured list, whether it was basically your whole rotation in and out being on the injured list for the first half of this season, shifting it to an inconsistent hot and cold offense. Kevin McGonigal's in one of his probably the lowest slump he's had over about a 10 to 15 to 20 game stretch. Dingler is still fighting his way out of a cold stretch. Riley Greene, the Tigers have won just 1 or 2 baseball games without Riley Greene in the lineup since he went back onto the injured list. Kerry Carpenter, you're missing. You've had Carpenter out at crucial points in the beginning and now at the end and in the middle of this season. Gleyber Torres missed some time. You just did not have consistency, and I don't know whenever you're going to find it. I don't know if injuries are going to continue to be a problem, but you can't continue to look back on seasons and say what could have been. And 3 years in a row now, you're going to look back and what could have been. Last year it was what could have been if Scott Harris took the trade deadline seriously. This season it's going to be what happens if injuries don't happen or if we go take the bullpen seriously. And there's so many, it feels like now, missteps that were taken along the way for how this team was managed, how this team was constructed, and ultimately putting your faith where you ultimately did in some areas. So still not a big Major League Baseball slate today. I'm not going to lie. I really didn't get a chance to glance over everything going on. Sort of just got back home from Monday night's game and recorded after coming back from Comerica Park, and that was the main focus tonight, obviously, was 6 losses in a row. Just to keep it simple, you lose 6 games in a row. 9 out of the last 10. Offense has gone very cold. You don't have really any pitching depth to continue to get yourself through. have names like Andrew Sears making major league debuts and so on and so forth. So it's going to be hard. I'm going to continue to watch this Detroit Tigers team and see where they end up and stay as invested as I can be. But if this isn't a postseason team by the time Michigan State and Detroit Lions football kicks off in September, I don't know where my interest will fully lie at that point in time. They're not dead completely by the numbers, but there's just you can't realistically look at moving forward, and unless they miraculously pull off 4 out of 5 of the next wins or games, wins in the next 4 or 5 games over teams like Tampa Bay and the Dodgers, but losing to teams like Pittsburgh, losing to a last place team like Kansas City, doesn't matter if they were hot, cold, or indifferent, and not showing any life tonight and having chances to score runs and not being able to, and that's just what it boils down to. In simple terms, the buzz and the optimism and everything is sort of out of the building for 2026. And as I will continue to reiterate, it's just truly, truly deflating. Once again, I will say it day in and day out, because it is. That this team, A, was unable to win with Tarek Skubal, B, is 9 games under 500, and C, was the first team to 60 wins, was 76-54, I believe, at this point last season. And just to fall flat on your head as you have. And 4 teams with a winning record in the American League. And the team that's been pitches away from a championship series appearance 2 years in a row, unfortunately, will not make the postseason in 2026. So that is what I have for you guys on today's Yapping About Sports. Thank you all again for listening. Thank you all again for watching. Really frustrating and unfortunate for the Detroit Tigers, but 4-1 final score on Monday, and 6 straight. Sort of hard to believe, and 61-70 now the record after just being 1 game below 500 entering last Friday. So that's what I have for you guys today. We, again, as I'm recording this, are just hours, minutes, and days closer to college football season, week 0 on Saturday. So we'll finally be able to move off the Detroit Tigers talk and the sad downfall and downslope so far of 2026. But that is what I have for you guys today. Thank you all again for listening, and I will see you all again tomorrow.